Clara's fingers had stopped hurting 2 hours ago. That scared her more than the cold. She pressed herself deeper into the gap between Henderson's back wall and the pile of rotting crates, watching her breath come out in thin white wisps, each exhale weaker than the last. 8 months of running, she thought. 8 months of fighting. And this is where it ends. Behind a general store in a town that doesn't even know my name. Her cracked lips moved in a whisper no one could hear. Please, just let it be quick. That's when the wagon wheels stopped. If you want to know what happens next, subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. I love seeing how far Clara's journey travels. Pa, there's somebody back there. Caleb Thornton's hands tightened on the reins. His daughter had her mother's eyes sharp, missing nothing. Probably a drunk, Thomas muttered beside him. Let's go. Storm's coming. She ain't moving, Pa. Lily pressed against his arm. And she's small, real small. Caleb looked at the sky. Heavy clouds rolling in from the mountains. 2 hours, maybe 3, before the worst hit. He should keep moving, get his children home safe. That was his job now, keeping them safe. But Maggie's voice whispered in his memory. You pass by someone in need. Caleb Thornton, and I'll haunt you till your dying day. 4 years gone, and she still won. Stay here. He handed Thomas the reins. Both of you. Pa. I said, stay. He climbed down, boots breaking through the ice-crusted mud. Behind Henderson's store, past the garbage and empty whiskey bottles, the owner was too lazy to haul away. He found her. A woman, curled tight like a child trying to disappear. Dressed thin as paper, torn at the elbows, soaked through. No coat, no gloves. Snow had started collecting in the hollow of her neck. Her lips were blue. Caleb crouched down slow. Ma'am. Nothing. Ma'am, can you hear me? Her eyes flew open. Not hope in them, terror. Pure animal terror. She threw her arms up, covering her face. Don't. Her voice cracked like breaking ice. I'll go. I'll leave. Just don't hit me. Please. Please don't hit me. Caleb's gut twisted. He knew that fear. Had seen it in his sister's eyes before her husband put her in the ground. Easy now. He held up both hands, palms out. I ain't gonna hurt you. She stared at him like he was speaking Chinese. Can you stand? She tried. Her arms gave out. She collapsed back, and a sound escaped her, half sob, half surrender. Can't feel my hands. Caleb didn't think. Just shrugged off his coat, good wool. Maggie's last gift, and wrapped it around her shoulders. She went rigid at his touch, every muscle locked. It's all right, he said, same voice he used with spooked horses. Just helping. Why? One word. Heavy with years of learning that help always came with a price. Because you need it. He lifted her. She weighed nothing, bones and desperation. That's reason enough. Thomas's face went pale when Caleb approached the wagon. Pa, what are you? Move over. You can't just. Did I stutter, boy? Thomas moved. Lily immediately scooted close to the stranger, patting her arm with a mittened hand. It's okay, the girl said solemnly. Pa's the best pa in the whole territory. He won't hurt you. Something cracked in the woman's frozen expression, a tiny fissure. Thank you, she breathed. I'm Lily. What's your name? A pause, a swallow. Clara. The ride took 40 minutes. Clara spent it fighting to stay conscious. Warmth crept back into her body, the coat the child pressed against her side, the heat from the man's broad back in front of her. With the warmth came pain. Needles in her fingers, fire in her toes. Good. Pain meant alive. Stupid, she thought. Being alive is what got you here. Pa! The boy's voice cut through the wind. Folks will talk. Let 'em. Reverend Cross said, taking in strays. Reverend Cross can kiss my... Caleb stopped himself. That man preaches charity every Sunday and won't spare a nickel for the poor box. His opinion ain't worth the air it takes to speak it. Clara felt the boy's eyes on her. Suspicious. Hostile. She didn't blame him. In his place, she'd feel the same. I'll leave tomorrow, she promised herself. Soon as I can walk, I'll go. But go where that question had chased her for 8 months. Since Edward's funeral. Since Marcus appeared with his lawyers and his smile that never reached his eyes. Since the Weston family took everything, her home, her clothes, her name, and threw her into the street like garbage. You brought this on yourself, Marcus had said. If you'd been a better wife, Edward wouldn't have needed to correct you. Correct. Such a clean word for broken ribs and cigarette burns. The cabin appeared through the snow. Small, solid smoke rising from the chimney. A home. A real home. That's what scared her most. Caleb carried her inside, and the heat hit like a wall. She gasped. Tears sprang to her eyes as feeling flooded back into her hands. Lord have mercy. A woman's voice, old and sharp as a rusted blade. What did you drag home this time, Caleb Thornton? Clara blinked. An ancient woman stood by the fire, face like crumpled paper, eyes like broken glass. Found her behind Henderson's, Caleb said, half frozen. Huh. The old woman. Ada, Clara would learn, moved closer. Gnarled fingers gripped Clara's chin, tilting her face toward the light. These bruises ain't from the cold. Clara flinched. Her hand flew to her cheek. She'd thought they'd faded. She'd been wrong. None of our business, Caleb said quietly. Hell, it ain't. Ada's eyes never left Clara's face. Who did this? And don't you dare lie to me, girl. I've buried 3 husbands and raised 7 sons. I know the difference between a fall and a fist. Clara's throat closed. She couldn't breathe. The fire crackled. Somewhere behind her, Lily whispered to Thomas, asking what bruises meant. He's dead, Clara finally managed. The man who... He's dead. Good. Ada nodded once. Then he can't hurt you no more. Simple words. Obvious truth. But hearing them spoken aloud by a stranger with no judgment, no accusation, broke something loose in Clara's chest. She began to cry. Not quiet tears. Not the silent weeping she'd mastered during her marriage. This was ugly, racking sobs that shook her whole body, scraped her throat raw. 5 years of swallowed screams pouring out in a stranger's cabin. Lily's small hand found hers. It's okay, Clara. You're safe now. Safe. When was the last time she'd felt safe, Tone? Caleb stood in the kitchen doorway watching Ada press hot broth into Clara's shaking hands. He should be in the barn, checking the horses, securing the doors before the storm hit. 100 things needed doing, but he couldn't move. Something about her tears had reached into his chest and squeezed. Not pity, he'd had enough pity directed at him after Maggie died to last 3 lifetimes. This was different. Recognition. He knew that grief. The kind that came from loving someone who destroyed you piece by piece. Maggie never destroyed me, he thought fiercely. She saved me. But he'd seen it in others. His sister Rachel. Married at 16 to a man with charm and a temper. Dead at 22. Fell down the stairs, her husband said. The bruises around her throat told a different story. Caleb had been 18. Too young and too far away to save her. He'd carried that failure ever since. Pa. Thomas stood beside him, face pinched with worry. And something else. Fear. Go upstairs, Caleb said. Get your sister. Time for bed. But... Now, Thomas. The boy went, casting one last look at Clara before climbing to the loft. Lily lingered, clearly wanting to stay with the interesting new person. Can Clara sleep in my bed? I'll sleep with Thomas. Clara gets the room by the kitchen. It's warmest. But... Lily Jane Thornton. She went, pouting hard enough to curdle milk. Ada appeared at Caleb's elbow, wiping her hands on her apron. Girl's taking a shine. Girl takes a shine to stray cats and wounded birds. Don't mean nothing. Ada fixed him with a look that saw too much. That woman's been through hell, Caleb. I seen fear like hers before. Someone taught her to expect pain from every hand that touched her. I figured. You gonna help her? She ain't a stray dog, Ada. Didn't say she was. Asked if you're gonna help. Caleb watched Clara through the doorway. She sat hunched by the fire, both hands wrapped around her cup, staring into the flames. Lost. Hollowed out. Like someone had scooped everything vital from inside her and left only the shell. She can stay, he said. Long as she needs. There's work wants doing. I can use the help. Ada's tone said she saw right through him. Just help. Nothing more. Nothing more. Even as he said it, Caleb knew it for a lie. Clara woke screaming. For one horrible moment, she was back in Boston. Edward's hand around her throat. His breath hot and sour. His voice in her ear. No one will ever believe you. You're nothing. Nothing without me. Then the world settled. Narrow bed, small room, firelight under the door. Safe, she told herself, though her heart was trying to beat through her ribs. You're safe. She sat up slow. Her fingers ached. Her toes burned. Frostbite probably, but she'd keep them. She'd survived worse. The door creaked. Clara's hand shot to her sleeve where she kept her knife. The one thing she'd refused to let go. The one thing she'd fought for when Marcus's men stripped her of everything else. But it was only Lily. Small face peering around the doorframe. You were crying, the child whispered. I heard you all the way upstairs. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. I wasn't sleeping. Lily padded in on bare feet, climbed onto the edge of the bed, tucked her legs under her nightgown. I was thinking about you. You should go back to bed. Your father... Pa snores real loud. He won't hear nothing. Lily studied her with that unnerving child's directness. Why were you outside in the snow? Didn't you have a house? I had one. Once. What happened to it? Clara hesitated. How did you explain the cruelty of men to a child who still believed the world was kind? Some people took it from me, after my husband died. That's not fair. No, it wasn't. Pa says when things aren't fair, you gotta make 'em fair yourself. Lily cocked her head. Are you gonna make it fair? Clara thought about Marcus. About his money, his lawyers, his connections. About all the powerful men who wanted her silent or dead. I don't know if I can. My ma couldn't make the sickness fair. Lily's voice dropped. She tried real hard, but it won anyway. Pa cried for a whole month. Thomas says I wasn't supposed to hear, but I did. She reached out and patted Clara's hand. Maybe you could stay with us. Then you don't gotta fix nothing. Clara's eyes burned. Your father might not want that. Pa wants lots of things he won't say. He thinks I don't notice. Lily yawned huge. But I notice everything. Footsteps in the hall. Lily scrambled off the bed fast as a startled cat. Don't tell Pa I was here. She was already at the door. He says I'm not supposed to bother guests. Gone before Clara could say she wasn't a guest. That she was nobody. That she had no right to this warmth and hope. But the warmth remained. And in the darkness alone with her fear, Clara let herself ask one terrifying question. What if I could stay, Monica? Morning came gray and cold. The storm had passed, leaving 2 feet of snow and a silence so deep it hurt. Clara dressed in clothes someone had left by her door, a brown dress worn but clean, and boots that fit better than expected. She knew whose they'd been. Could smell the cedar and lavender of careful storage. Maggie's dress, Maggie's boots, Maggie's husband. She shouldn't be here. She was an intruder in a dead woman's life. But where else could she go? The kitchen was warm, bright, full of the smell of bacon and coffee. Thomas sat at the table, not looking at her. Lily bounced in her chair. "You look pretty," the girl announced. "That was Mama's favorite dress." Thomas made a sound like he'd been punched. "Lily." Caleb's voice quiet but firm. "That's enough." "But it's true Mama said brown matched her eyes, and Clara has brown eyes too." "I said enough." Clara stood frozen in the doorway. "Advance or retreat? Fight or flight?" "Sit." Caleb gestured to an empty chair. "Eat." She sat. She ate. The food was simple bacon eggs, bread still warm from the oven, but it was the best meal she'd had in months. She tried not to shovel it like a starving animal. She failed. When she looked up, Caleb was watching her. Not with disgust. Something else. "When's the last time you ate proper?" Clara thought about it. The answer was embarrassing. "I don't remember." Thomas snorted. "Figures." "Thomas." "What?" The boy's voice cracked. "We don't know nothing about her. She could be anyone. A criminal, That's enough." "It ain't enough. Ma's been gone 4 years and you're already—" He stopped, face flushing red, shoved back from the table and stormed toward the door. "Thomas Thornton, sit down. I gotta check the horses." The door slammed. Snow swirled in, then settled. In the silence, Clara could hear her own heartbeat. "I should go." She pushed back from the table. "I'm causing trouble. I'll leave today." "You'll do no such thing." Caleb's voice stopped her. "Boy's got a right to his feelings. Don't mean he's right." He rubbed a hand over his face. "His mother. He took it hard. We all did. He's scared things are changing." "I don't want to change anything. I just needed—" Clara stopped. What had she needed? I don't know what I needed. "Help." Caleb's eyes met hers. "You needed help. Ain't no shame in that." Lily slipped from her chair and patted over small hand, reaching up to pat Clara's arm. "Don't be sad. Thomas is grumpy, but he's not mean. Not really." Clara felt tears threatening again. What was it about this child? "Thank you, Lily." "You're welcome." The girl beamed. "Want to see the horses later?" "We got 40. Pa says I can have my own when I turn 8. "Lily." Caleb stood gathering plates. "Let Clara rest. She's been through a lot." "But Pa." "No buts. Primer. Lessons. Now." Lily groaned but obeyed. At the doorway she paused and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "I'm glad you're here, Clara." Then she was gone, leaving Clara alone with Caleb Thornton. "I should tell you," Clara's voice came out steadier than she expected, "about where I came from, what I'm running from. You deserve to know what you've brought into your home." Caleb set down the dishes. "You don't owe me your story. You took me in. You gave me your wife's clothes. You're risking your family's reputation just by letting me stay." Reputation. He said the word like it tasted sour. Half this town's reputation is built on lies they tell each other. I stopped caring what they think years ago. But your children? My children will learn that helping folks in need is more important than what the gossips say. He turned to face her. "Now, you want to tell me? Tell me. But I ain't demanding nothing." Clara looked at him, really looked. Tall, broad-shouldered, face weathered by wind and grief, strong hands, gentle voice. So different from Edward, who'd had soft hands and a voice like honey hiding poison. "My husband was wealthy," she began. "His family has money, power, political connections. When he died 8 months ago." She took a breath. "They blamed me. For his death? For everything. For not giving him children. For not being good enough. For not—" Her voice cracked. "For not being worth keeping alive." Caleb went very still. "What do you mean?" "Edward drank. Every night more and more. And when the whiskey made him mean, he needed someone to hurt." She couldn't look at him. Stared at her hands instead. "For 5 years, I was convenient. She waited for the question. Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you fight back? Why didn't you tell someone? It didn't come. The bruises, Caleb said quietly. That was him. Yes. And now someone's hunting you. Clara's blood went cold. How did you? You got the look, same look a deer gets when it smells wolves. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Who? His brother, Marcus. Even saying the name made her stomach clench. He's a lawyer, has political ambitions, plans to run for territorial governor next year. And you're a threat to him. I know things. Things he helped Edward hide. Things that would destroy his career if they came out. What kind of things? Clara hesitated. Once she said this, there was no taking it back. There were other women, before me. Edward hurt them too. One of them died. Marcus made it disappear. Paid off the police. Paid off her family. Made it like she never existed. Caleb's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Something cold and dangerous. And he thinks you'll talk. I tried. After Edward died, I went to the police. Told them everything. Her laugh came out bitter. They arrested me for slander. Marcus had me committed to an asylum for female hysteria. I escaped 3 months later, been running ever since. 3 months in an asylum. Caleb's voice was very quiet. For telling the truth. For being inconvenient. Clara finally looked up at him. That's why I should leave. If Marcus finds out I'm here, if he knows you helped me, he'll destroy you. He'll take your land, your children. Let him try. The words were simple. The tone was not. You don't understand. He has money, connections, lawyers who can make legal documents say anything he wants. Clara. Caleb moved closer. Not threatening, solid, present. I spent 8 years in the cavalry before I came here. I've seen men like this Marcus. Rich men who think the rules don't apply to them. His jaw tightened. They're all the same. Brave when they're buying judges and bribing lawmen. Cowards when someone fights back. He'll come for me. Then we'll be ready. Why? The question burst out of her. Why would you risk everything for a stranger? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. 4 years ago, my wife got sick. Tuberculosis. I was 3 days' ride away buying horses when she took bad. He stopped. Swallowed. By the time I got home, she was gone. Died asking where I was. Died thinking I'd abandoned her. I'm so sorry. Point is, I wasn't there. Been carrying that weight ever since. His eyes met hers. When I found you in that snow, I thought maybe this is my chance. To do something right. To save someone I couldn't save before. Clara felt something crack open in her chest. Not gratitude. Something deeper. More dangerous. Don't hope she warned herself. Don't trust. That's how you get hurt. But the walls she'd built were crumbling. And try as she might, she couldn't stop them. The next few days blurred together. Clara worked. Not because Caleb demanded it, but because she needed to. Needed to prove she was worth the food she ate, the space she took up. Needed to feel useful after months of being told she was worthless. She cooked, cleaned, mended clothes that had been waiting in a basket for who knew how long. The work steadied her, gave her hands something to do besides shake. Thomas avoided her at first, then tolerated her, then slowly began to thaw. The turning point came 5 days after her arrival. She was in the barn mucking out stalls, a job she'd never done before, but was determined to master when she heard Thomas cry out. She found him pinned against the wall by a young stallion, the horse's eyes rolling white with fear. Hooves stamping dangerously close to the boy's feet. Don't move. Clara's voice came out calm. calmer than she felt. Stay perfectly still. He's gonna kill me. No, he's not. He's scared. Something spooked him. She moved slowly, easing along the wall. What's his name? Whoa, what? The horse. What's his name? Ranger. He's new. Pa just brought him in last week. Ranger. Clara pitched her voice low, the same tone she'd used with the carriage horses back in Boston, the only creatures who'd ever shown her kindness in that house. Easy there, Ranger. Easy boy. The stallion's ears flicked toward her. That's right. Nobody's going to hurt you. She reached out slowly. Nobody's going to hurt anyone. Her hand touched his neck. He flinched, then stilled. She stroked gently, murmuring nonsense, feeling his rapid heartbeat slow under her palm. Thomas, move toward the door. Slow. The boy obeyed, sliding along the wall until he was clear. The moment he was safe, he slumped against the doorframe, shaking. How'd you do that? Clara kept stroking Ranger's neck. Horses aren't so different from people. They act mean when they're scared. You just have to show them they don't need to be afraid. Thomas stared at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his face. Thank you, he said. For, You're welcome. He hesitated at the door. I'm sorry for being rotten to you before. You were protecting your family. There's nothing rotten about that. Pa says you're family now. Says you're gonna stay. Clara's heart stuttered. Did he? He didn't say it out loud. But I know. I can tell by how he looks at you. Thomas's jaw tightened. My ma. She was real special. Everyone loved her. I'm sure she was. I don't want to forget her. You won't. Clara turned to face him fully. Loving new people doesn't mean forgetting the ones we've lost. It means we carry them with us. They're part of who we become. Thomas considered this. Pa said something like that once. Your pa's a wise man. Don't tell him that. He's already too stubborn. Clara smiled. Her first real smile in months. And after a moment, Thomas smiled back. That evening, Ada came for dinner. The old woman had been checking on them every few days, bringing fresh bread or preserves, staying to share meals, and sharp observations. Tonight, she had news. Whole town's buzzing about your house guest, she announced, settling into a chair by the fire. Martha Henderson's convinced you've taken up with a scarlet woman. Reverend Cross delivered a whole sermon about the dangers of harboring sinners. Let them talk. Caleb's voice was flat. Oh, I intend to. But you should know there was a stranger in town today. Well-dressed city fellow, asking questions. Clara's blood turned to ice. What kind of questions? Caleb asked. About newcomers to the area, women traveling alone. Whether anyone had seen a young widow, brown hair, brown eyes. Ada's gaze found Clara. Offered $20 for information. That's more than most folks here make in a month. The room tilted. Clara gripped the edge of the table. Marcus, she whispered. He's sent someone. Seems likely. Ada nodded. Man left around noon. Said he'd be back. Caleb stood abruptly. Thomas, take your sister upstairs. Time for bed. But Pa... Now. The children went. Lily protesting, Thomas casting worried looks over his shoulder. When they were gone, Caleb turned to Ada. Anyone in town likely to talk? For $20, half of 'em. Ada's voice was grim. Martha Henderson saw you bring her in. So did Walter Price and his boy. Word's probably already spreading. How long do we have? Day or two. Maybe less if the weather holds. Caleb looked at Clara. She was pale, trembling, but her jaw was set. I have to go, she said. Tonight, before he comes back. I won't let Marcus hurt your family. You're not going anywhere. Caleb. You heard me. He moved toward her, stopped an arm's length away. You run now, you run forever. Is that the life you want? It's better than getting you killed. I ain't easy to kill. His mouth quirked. Ask the Comanche I served with. They tried 3 times. This isn't a joke. No, it ain't. All trace of humor vanished. It's a fight, and I don't run from fights. Why? The word tore out of her. Why won't you let me go? You barely know me. You have children to protect, a life to live. Why would you throw that away for some woman you found in the snow? Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Because when I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. Someone who's been knocked down so many times she's forgotten how to stand. Someone who thinks she's not worth saving. He stepped closer, close enough that Clara could feel the heat of him. You're wrong, he said softly. You're worth saving, and I aim to prove it. Clara stared at him. No one had ever said anything like that to her. Not her father who'd sold her to the highest bidder. Not Edward who'd bought her like livestock. Not anyone. I don't know how to trust anymore, she whispered. I know. His hand came up, hovered near her face, then dropped. I ain't asking you to trust me, just asking you to let me try. Ada cleared her throat loudly. Well, this is all very touching, but we got practical matters to attend to. Caleb stepped back, something flickering in his eyes, regret maybe, or resolve. What do you suggest? That man comes back with more money or more men, you'll need allies. Time to call in some favors. Ada's smile showed teeth. I know a few folks who owe me, and a few more who'd love an excuse to spit in a rich man's eye. That's a start. It's more than a start, it's a plan. The old woman rose, gathering her shawl. I'll be back tomorrow with reinforcements. She pointed at Clara. Get some rest. You'll need your strength. For what? Ada's grin widened. For the fight of your life, girl. For the fight of your life. That night, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in the narrow bed listening to the wind howl, thinking about everything that had happened. Everything that was coming. Marcus's man would return. Would offer more money. Would find someone willing to talk. And then a knock at her door. Soft. Hesitant. Clara. Caleb's voice low. You awake? She sat up, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. Come in. He entered carrying a lantern, its light casting long shadows across the walls. He'd changed out of his work clothes into a clean shirt, and his hair was damp, like he'd just washed up. Couldn't sleep either, he said, settling into the chair by the window. Figured I'd check on you. I'm fine. Liar. But he said it gently. You're scared. You got every right to be. Aren't you scared? He considered. No. Angry maybe. Man like Marcus using his money to hurt people who can't fight back, that makes my blood boil. But scared. He shook his head. I've faced worse. Have you? Cavalry service wasn't exactly peaceful. And before that, he paused. I told you about my sister, Rachel. What I didn't tell you was what happened after. Clara waited. I was 18 when she died, still living with my folks in Pennsylvania. Her husband, his name was Samuel. He showed up at the funeral acting like a grieving widow. Everyone believed him. Everyone offered condolences. Caleb's jaw tightened. I was the only one who saw the truth, and no one would listen. What did you do? What I had to. His eyes met hers. Samuel had an accident 3 months later. Fell off a cliff while hunting. Real tragedy. The implication hung in the air. I made sure no one else got hurt. His voice was flat. Then I left Pennsylvania, joined the cavalry. Never went back. Clara didn't know what to say. The man before her, gentle with his children, patient with spooked horses, kind to strangers, had killed someone, had admitted it without a trace of regret. Does that change things? He asked quietly. knowing what I'm capable of. Clara thought about it, really thought. No, she said finally. He deserved it, for what he did to your sister. Yes, he did. Caleb leaned forward. And if Marcus comes for you, if he tries to hurt you or take you away, I'll do whatever it takes to stop him. You need to know that. You need to know exactly what kind of man you're putting your trust in. A dangerous one. When I need to be. His gaze softened. But not to you. Never to you. Clara felt the last of her resistance crumble. She was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of carrying this weight alone. I believe you, she said. And for the first time since her nightmare began, she meant it. The letter arrived 3 days later. Clara was in the kitchen kneading bread when Caleb returned from town with supplies and mail. His face was grim as he handed her the envelope. Denver postmark, no return address. Her hands shook as she tore it open. She read the words once, twice, 3 times. My dear sister-in-law, I know where you are. I know who shelters you. I know about the widower and his children. You have 1 week to return to Denver. If you refuse, I will come for you personally, and I will bring the full weight of the law. You cannot escape me, Clara. You never could. Your devoted brother, Marcus. The letter slipped from her fingers. Caleb picked it up, read it, and his expression went cold as a mountain winter. Thomas, he called toward the barn. Get in here. The boy appeared, followed by Lily. Both stopped short at the look on their father's face. What is it, Pa? Thomas asked. What's wrong? Caleb looked at Clara. She saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before, not just determination, but fury. Cold, controlled, dangerous fury. The man who hurt Clara is coming, Caleb said. He thinks he can take what isn't his. He thinks he can walk onto my land and steal someone under my protection. What are we going to do? Thomas asked. Caleb's hand came to rest on Clara's shoulder. Warm, steady, sure. We're going to show him he's wrong. His voice rang through the cabin like a bell. We're going to fight, and we're going to win. Lily tugged at Clara's sleeve. Does this mean you're staying forever? Clara looked at Caleb. He nodded once. Yes, she said, and the word felt like a promise. I'm staying forever. Thomas squared his thin shoulders. Then I'll help protect you. Pa taught me to shoot, and I notice everything. Lily grabbed Clara's hand. Me too, I can throw real good. I hit a squirrel once from 20 feet. Despite everything, the fear, the danger, the storm gathering on the horizon, Clara laughed, real laughter, rusty from disuse, but real. Thank you, she said. All of you. I don't know what I did to deserve this. Caleb's hand tightened on her shoulder. You survived, he said simply. That's enough. Outside, the wind picked up. Clouds gathered over the mountains. Another storm was coming. But Clara Weston wasn't afraid anymore. She had finally found something worth fighting for. Ada was true to her word. By noon the next day, 3 wagons rolled up the frozen path to the Thornton homestead. Clara watched from the window, heart pounding, as strangers climbed down and stamped their boots against the cold. Who are they? She asked. Caleb stood beside her close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Friends. People who owe Ada favors. People who don't take kindly to rich men pushing folks around. The first through the door was a giant of a man with a beard like a grizzly and hands the size of dinner plates. He ducked to clear the frame, then straightened and grinned at Caleb. Heard you got trouble coming, Thornton. Might be Ben, might be. Good. Ben cracked his knuckles. Been too quiet around here lately. Behind him came a woman about Clara's age, dark-haired and sharp-eyed, carrying a rifle like she knew how to use it. A younger man followed, barely 20, with the same dark hair and watchful expression. My daughter Sarah, Ben said. And her boy Daniel. Best shot in the county, that one. Sarah nodded at Clara. No judgment in her gaze. No pity either. just assessment. You're the one they're after. Yes. Then we're on your side. Sarah set her rifle against the wall. Ada told us what you've been through. No woman deserves that. More people arrived through the morning. Tom Garrett, a wiry rancher from the next valley over, with his 2 grown sons. Martha Chen, a Chinese widow who ran the laundry in town, and owed Ada her life after a fever nearly took her 3 winters back. Old Jim Blackwood, no relation to any Blackwood Clara had known, a former sheriff who'd retired after taking a bullet that still lodged near his spine. By the time the sun reached its peak, 14 people filled Caleb's small cabin. 14 people who'd come to help a stranger. Clara didn't know what to do with that. You look like you're about to cry, Ada observed, appearing at her elbow with a cup of coffee. I don't understand. These people don't know me. Why would they risk themselves? Because they know Caleb, know what kind of man he is. Ada pressed the cup into Clara's hands. And because most of them have been where you are, pushed around by folks with money and power. They know what it feels like to have nobody in your corner. But I can't pay them back. I have nothing. Girl, Ada's voice sharpened. You think that's what this is about? Money? She shook her head. Out here we take care of our own. That's how we survive. And like it or not, you're one of ours now. Clara looked at the crowded room, at Thomas showing Daniel his hunting rifle, at Lily sitting on Ben's massive knee chattering about horses while he nodded solemnly, at Caleb standing in the center of it all, planning, organizing, preparing for battle. For her. All of this was for her. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Maybe not. Ada's voice softened. But you're getting it anyway. So drink your coffee, stand up straight, and figure out how you're gonna help us win. The planning took hours. Old Jim, despite his injury, had the sharpest tactical mind Clara had ever encountered. He'd spread a rough map across the kitchen table and was marking positions with charcoal. If this Marcus sends men, they'll come from the South Road, only way in that can handle wagons. He drew a line. We post lookouts here, here, and here. Anyone approaches, we'll know an hour before they arrive. And if they come at night, Caleb asked, then we light fires, here and here. Jim marked 2 more positions. Anyone trying to sneak in will be silhouetted against the flames. What about the law? Sarah asked. If this man's connected like Ada says, he might bring a sheriff, or a federal marshal. He'll try. Jim's voice was grim. Men like him always hide behind badges. But here's the thing out here. We're 3 days from the nearest federal court, 4 from the territorial capital. Whatever paper he brings, it won't mean much unless he's got the men to back it up. And if he does? Clara asked. If he brings an army? Jim looked at her with something like respect. Then we make sure it costs him more than he's willing to pay. That night, Clara found herself alone with Caleb for the first time since the letter arrived. The others had bedded down in the barn, and the outbuildings transforming the homestead into something between a camp and a fortress. Thomas and Lily were asleep in the loft, exhausted from the excitement. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows across the walls. You should sleep, Caleb said. He sat in his usual chair by the hearth, but his eyes were on the door. Watching. Waiting. So should you. I will. Soon. Clara settled onto the bench across from him. You didn't have to do this. Any of this. You could have put me on a wagon and sent me away. No one would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. Why do you care so much? I'm nothing to you. A stranger. A burden. Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. You want to know why? Yes. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. When Maggie died, I wanted to die too. Just stop. Let the grief swallow me whole. He paused. But I had the children. They needed me. So I got up every morning, and I did what needed doing, even when I couldn't feel nothing but emptiness. That's not an answer. I'm getting there. His eyes found hers. For 4 years, I've been going through the motions, keeping the ranch running, keeping the kids fed and clothed and safe. But I haven't been alive. Not really. Just existing. And now, something flickered in his gaze. Now I feel something. For the first time since I buried my wife, I feel something other than grief. He swallowed hard. When I look at you, Clara, I see someone who's been through hell and come out fighting. Someone who refuses to give up even when giving up would be easier. Someone who makes me want to be better than I am. Clara's heart hammered against her ribs. Caleb, I ain't asking for nothing. I know you've got no reason to trust men, no reason to believe anything I say. He stood abruptly, moving to the window, his back to her. But I needed you to know. Whatever happens with Marcus, whatever comes next, this wasn't duty, wasn't obligation. It was choice. Clara rose, crossed the room on unsteady legs, stopped just behind him, close enough to touch, but not quite touching. I was married for 5 years, she said quietly. 5 years of being told I was worthless, ugly, stupid. 5 years of fists and burns and words that cut deeper than any blade. She watched his shoulders tense. I believed him. After a while, I believed every word, thought I deserved what he did to me. Caleb turned. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury, but his eyes held something else entirely. You didn't deserve any of it. I know that now. But knowing it here, she touched her head, is different from knowing it here. Her hand moved to her chest. You asked me to let you try, to let you prove I'm worth saving. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm trying, Caleb. I'm trying so hard, but I'm scared. Every moment of every day I'm terrified that this is a dream, that I'll wake up and be back in that house with Edward's hands around my throat. Clara. He said her name like a prayer. I can't undo what he did, can't erase those years. But I can promise you this, as long as I'm breathing, no one will ever hurt you again. You can't promise that. Watch me. She didn't know which of them moved first. One moment they were standing apart, and the next his arms were around her, pulling her close, and she was burying her face in his chest, breathing in the scent of wood smoke and horses, and something uniquely him. She should pull away, should remind herself that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. But she was so tired of being alone, so tired of being afraid. I'm not her, she whispered against his shirt. I'm not Maggie. I don't know if I can be what you need. I don't want you to be Maggie. His hand stroked her hair, gentle as a summer breeze. I want you to be Clara. That's enough. That's more than enough. She looked up at him. In the firelight, his face was all sharp angles and soft shadows. He looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting. What happens now? She asked. Now. His thumb traced her cheekbone featherlight. Now we wait. And when Marcus comes, we show him that some things can't be bought or bullied. Some things are worth fighting for. And if we lose, we won't. His voice was certain as stone. Because I've got something to fight for now, and I don't intend to lose it. The next morning brought more preparations. Clara found herself swept into the work, no longer a burden to be protected, but a participant in her own defense. Sarah taught her to load and fire a rifle. Ben showed her the best places to hide if the cabin was breached. Ada pressed a small derringer into her hands, its pearl handle worn smooth with age. Last resort, the old woman said, but better to have it and not need it. I've never shot anyone. Let's hope you don't have to start now. Even Thomas and Lily had their roles. Thomas was stationed at the northern lookout point, his sharp eyes tasked with watching for approaching riders. Lily, much to her disgust, was assigned to the root cellar, where she would hide with Martha Chen if fighting broke out. "I want to help," she protested. "I can throw real good." "You are helping," Caleb told her, kneeling to meet her eyes. "You're keeping Mrs. Chen company. That's the most important job of all." Lily's lower lip trembled. "But what if the bad men hurt you?" "They won't. I've got too many people looking out for me." He pulled her into a hug. "And when this is over, we'll have the biggest celebration Silver Creek has ever seen. Ice cream and apple pie and all the horse rides you want. Promise?" "Promise." Clara watched the exchange, heart aching. This man, this gruff, grieving, stubborn man, loved his children with a fierceness that took her breath away. She thought of the baby she'd lost 3 years into her marriage, the one Edward had beaten out of her in a drunken rage, then blamed her for losing. She'd never told anyone about that. Not the doctors who'd treated her bleeding, not the servants who'd changed her sheets, not anyone. Maybe someday she would tell Caleb. Maybe someday she could speak those words aloud without shattering. But not today. Today there was a battle to prepare for. The rider came at dusk. Thomas spotted him first, his warning shout carrying across the homestead like a gunshot. Clara's stomach dropped as she watched the distant figure approach, not an army, not yet just one man on horseback riding slow and deliberate. "Everyone hold." Caleb's voice was calm. "Let him come." They assembled on the porch, a wall of determined faces. Caleb stood at the center, Clara beside him. She wanted to hide, to run, to disappear into the mountains and never be found. But Caleb's hand found hers, and she stood her ground. The rider drew closer. Clara recognized the expensive coat, the polished boots, the smug smile that hadn't changed since the last time she'd seen it. Marcus Weston dismounted 10 feet from the porch. His eyes swept over the assembled crowd, lingering on Clara with something that might have been amusement. "My dear sister-in-law." His voice was silk over poison. "What a pleasure to finally find you." "She ain't your sister, nothing." Ada spat on the ground. "And you ain't welcome here." Marcus ignored her. His attention stayed fixed on Clara. "You've caused quite a bit of trouble, you know. I've spent considerable resources tracking you down. The family is very concerned about your welfare." "The family threw me into the street." Clara's voice shook, but she forced the words out. "The family had me committed to an asylum. The family wants me dead." "Such dramatics," Marcus tisked. "All we want is for you to come home, where you belong." "She belongs here." Caleb stepped forward, placing himself between Clara and Marcus. "With us." Marcus's smile widened. "Ah, the widower. I've heard about you, Mr. Thornton. War veteran, respectable rancher, pillar of the community." He paused. "Tragic about your wife. Such a young woman to be taken by consumption." Something dangerous flickered in Caleb's eyes. "You'd best not speak about things you don't understand." "Oh, but I understand perfectly. You're lonely, desperate. Along comes a pretty woman in distress, and you think you've found a replacement for what you lost." Marcus shook his head. "I hate to disillusion you, but Clara isn't what she seems. She's mentally unstable. Dangerous. The asylum records prove it." "Records you fabricated," Clara said. "Records signed by 3 licensed physicians." Marcus's tone hardened. "I have the law on my side, Mrs. Weston. I have a court order declaring you incompetent. I have the authority to take you back to Denver by force if necessary." "Then where are your men?" Jim Blackwood stepped forward, badge gleaming on his chest. He'd pinned it there that morning, a reminder of who he'd once been. "If you've got the law on your side, why are you here alone?" Marcus's smile faltered just for a moment. "A show of good faith. I hoped to resolve this peacefully." Peacefully. Sarah lifted her rifle, not quite pointing it at Marcus, but making it clear she could. "You threaten this woman, you threaten her family, and you come here talking about peace. Miss, I would advise you to lower that weapon." "I'll lower it when you leave, not before." Tension crackled through the air like lightning before a storm. Clara watched Marcus's face, saw the calculations running behind his eyes. He was outnumbered, and he knew it. But men like Marcus always had another card to play. Very well. He raised his hands in mock surrender. I can see I've overstayed my welcome, but I'll leave you with this. His gaze found Clara's. I'm returning to Denver tomorrow. When I come back, and I will come back, I'll have a federal marshal and 50 men with me. I'll have papers signed by the territorial governor himself, and I'll have the legal authority to arrest anyone who stands in my way. Is that a threat? Caleb's voice was quiet, dangerous. It's a promise. Marcus mounted his horse. You have 3 days, Clara. 3 days to come to your senses. After that, he smiled. Well, let's just say I won't be so understanding. He turned his horse and rode away without looking back. Silence held the homestead in its grip until the rider disappeared over the ridge. Then everyone started talking at once. 50 men. Federal marshal. We can't fight. Quiet. Caleb's voice cut through the noise. Everyone inside. We need to talk. In the crowded cabin, tempers ran hot. He's bluffing, Ben insisted. No way he gets 50 men out here in 3 days. Maybe not 50. Jim's voice was grim. But 20, 30. With a federal badge to give them authority, that's more than enough. So we run. Tom Garrett paced by the door. Take Clara ahead for the mountains. They'll never find her up there. Running won't solve nothing. Ada shook her head. Man like Marcus, he won't stop. Not until he gets what he wants. Then what do we do? Everyone looked at Caleb. He stood by the firearms, crossed face, unreadable. There's another option, he said quietly. One Marcus didn't consider. What's that? Caleb's eyes found Clara's. We get married. The room went silent. Clara's heart stopped, restarted, hammered against her ribs like it was trying to escape. What? She breathed. If you're my wife, you're beyond his reach. Colorado law says a married woman can't be committed against her husband's will. The guardianship claim becomes invalid. The court order worthless. You can't just marry her to solve a legal problem, Sarah protested. I'm not. Caleb's gaze never left Clara's. I'm marrying her because I want to. Because I've wanted to since the moment I carried her out of that snowstorm. He paused. The legal protection is just a bonus. Caleb? Clara's voice cracked. You can't. You barely know me. I know enough. He moved toward her, stopping an arm's length away. I know you're strong, stronger than anyone I've ever met. I know you're kind even after everything the world's done to you. I know my children love you. And I know that He stopped, swallowed hard. I know that I can't imagine my life without you in it. Clara felt tears streaming down her cheeks. She wanted to say yes, wanted to throw herself into his arms and never let go, but doubt held her frozen. What if I'm not who you think I am? What if I disappoint you? You won't. You don't know that. Clara. He closed the distance between them, took her hands in his. I've been married once. I know what it means, the good and the bad. And I'm telling you right now, in front of all these witnesses, I want to spend the rest of my life learning who you are. However long that takes. Whatever surprises you've got hiding. His thumb stroked her knuckles. Say yes. She looked at him. At this man who'd rescued her from death and given her a home. Who'd stood against her enemies and rallied a small army in her defense. Who looked at her like she was worth something. Like she was worth everything. Yes, she whispered. The room erupted. Lily shrieked with joy and threw herself at Clara's legs. Thomas grinned so wide his face might split. Ben let out a whoop that shook the rafters. Ada wiped tears from her cheeks and pretended it was dust. Well then, Jim Blackwood stepped forward, a rare smile on his weathered face. Seems we've got ourselves a wedding to plan. No time for planning. Caleb's arm slipped around Clara's waist, pulling her close. We do it tonight, before Marcus can do anything to stop us. Tonight? Clara's head spun. But we need a minister. I've got authority to marry folks. Ada straightened her shoulders. Got it from the territorial government back in '72 when the nearest preacher was 3 counties away. Still valid far as I know. And witnesses? Sarah asked. Ada gestured at the crowded room. We've got plenty of those. Clara looked at Caleb. Are you sure this is so fast? I've never been more sure of anything. He cupped her face in his hands. But only if you're sure too. I won't have you say yes because you're scared. I want you to say yes because you want to. Clara thought about the last 8 months. The running, the hiding, the constant fear that had become her constant companion. She thought about the 5 years before that trapped in a house with a monster praying every night for escape. She thought about Lily's laughter and Thomas's grudging acceptance, about warm fires and shared meals and the feel of Caleb's arms around her. She thought about hope. I want to, she said. God help me, I want to. They were married that night in front of the fire, surrounded by strangers who'd become family. Ada performed the ceremony with a solemnity that belied her usual sharp tongue. Clara wore Maggie's brown dress, the one Thomas had protested what felt like a lifetime ago, and carried a bouquet of winter berries that Lily had gathered from the snowdrifts. Caleb wore his only suit, the one he'd married Maggie in, and his hands shook when he took Clara's. I, Caleb Thornton, take you, Clara, to be my wife. His voice was rough with emotion. To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. Clara's throat was so tight she could barely speak. I, Clara, take you, Caleb, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. The ring, Ada prompted. Caleb produced a simple gold band, his mother's, he'd told her earlier. Clara's hands trembled as he slid it onto her finger. With this ring, I thee wed. Ada smiled. By the power vested in me by the territory of Colorado, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Her eyes twinkled. Well, go on then. Kiss her. Caleb kissed her. It wasn't their first kiss that had happened in the darkness of the night before, tentative and sweet. But this was different. This was a declaration, a promise, a beginning. When they parted, Clara was crying. Happy tears, for the first time in years, happy tears. Pa! Lily tugged at Caleb's sleeve. Does this mean Clara's our ma now? Caleb looked at Clara. Clara looked at the children, Thomas standing straight and proud. Lily bouncing with excitement, and felt her heart crack open. If you'll have me, she said softly. Lily's response was to launch herself into Clara's arms. Thomas hesitated only a moment before joining the embrace. Welcome to the family, the boy said quietly. Ma. Clara held them tight and let the tears fall. Whatever came next, Marcus the Marshal, the fight ahead, she would face it. She finally had something worth fighting for. The wedding night was not what Clara expected. Caleb led her to the small bedroom off the main room, the one she'd been sleeping in since her arrival. He closed the door behind them, and suddenly the noise of celebration outside seemed very far away. Clara's hands trembled. She knew what came next. Had learned to dread it during 5 years with Edward. The rough hands, the whiskey breath, the pain that followed. Clara. Caleb's voice was soft. Look at me. She forced her eyes up. He stood by the door, making no move toward her. I ain't gonna touch you, he said quietly. Not tonight. Not until you're ready. But we're married now. You have the right. I don't want rights. Something fierce flickered in his eyes. I want you to want me. And if that takes a week or a month or a year, then that's how long I'll wait. Clara stared at him. In her experience, men didn't wait. Men took what they wanted and called it their due. "I don't understand you," she whispered. "I know." He moved to the small chair by the window, settled into it. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." "You're going to sleep in that chair. I've slept in worse places." Clara stood frozen, torn between relief and something else. Something that felt almost like disappointment. "Caleb?" "Yeah. Thank you." He nodded once, closed his eyes. Within minutes, his breathing had evened out. Clara lay in the narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to her husband sleep. Her husband. The word felt strange in her mind. Foreign. Like a language she was only beginning to learn. But for the first time in years, she fell asleep without fear. Morning brought reality crashing back. Clara woke to shouting outside. She bolted upright, heart pounding, and found Caleb already gone. Through the window, she could see figures running toward the northern lookout. She pulled on her boots and rushed outside. "What's happening?" Sarah intercepted her rifle in hand. "Riders coming. 8 of them." "Marcus?" "Can't tell yet, but they ain't friendly." Clara's blood turned to ice. 3 days, Marcus had said. It had only been 1. She found Caleb at the edge of the property field, glasses pressed to his eyes. Ben stood beside him, both men tense as coiled springs. "Is it him?" Clara asked. Caleb lowered the glasses. His jaw was tight. "No, it's worse." "Worse?" "Sheriff Morrison from Silver Creek, and Judge Harrison Cole." He handed her the glasses. "The man in the black coat. Recognize him." Clara looked. Her stomach dropped. "That's Marcus's lawyer, Franklin Webb. He handled Edward's estate." "Figured as much." Caleb took the glasses back. "They've got papers. I can see them from here." "What do? We do what we planned." His hand found hers, squeezed once. "We stand our ground." The riders approached in formation, Sheriff Morrison at the lead. He was a heavy-set man with a thick mustache and the perpetually annoyed expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere else. "Caleb Thornton," he called out, reining his horse to a stop. "We need to talk." "Talk then." Morrison dismounted, followed by the others. Judge Cole was thin and pale, with the look of a man who'd never done an honest day's work. Franklin Webb hung back, a smirk playing at his lips. "I've got papers here." Morrison held up a folded document. "Court order from Denver. Says I'm to take Clara Weston into custody and transport her back for psychiatric evaluation." "Her name ain't Weston anymore." Caleb's voice was flat. "It's Thornton. We were married last night." Morrison's eyebrows shot up. "Married, legal and proper." Ada McIntyre performed the ceremony. Got 14 witnesses who'll swear to it. Webb stepped forward, his smirk widening. "A marriage conducted under duress has no legal standing. Mrs. Weston is clearly not in her right mind. Any competent judge would—" "I'm a competent judge." Jim Blackwood emerged from the cabin, his old badge gleaming. "Retired federal marshal, 30 years service. And I witnessed that ceremony. There was no duress, no coercion. Just 2 people making vows before God and community." Judge Cole's face reddened. "You have no authority here, Blackwood. You're retired." "My authority comes from witnessing the truth. Something you might not recognize given who's paying your salary." "How dare you?" "Gentlemen." Morrison held up a hand. "Let's keep this civil." He turned to Caleb. "Look, Thornton, I don't want trouble, but I've got a court order. I've got to follow it. That court order was issued based on fraudulent testimony." Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her gut. "Marcus Weston had me committed to an asylum to keep me quiet about his brother's crimes. The physicians who signed those papers were bribed. The entire case was built on lies." Webb laughed. "This is exactly the kind of paranoid delusion we're talking about. Mrs. Weston. Mrs. Thornton. Mrs. Thornton, then. Webb's smile didn't waver. Surely you can see how this sounds. You're claiming a vast conspiracy involving multiple doctors, judges, and lawyers. The more logical explanation is that you're simply unwell. The more logical explanation is that rich men cover up their crimes. Ada's voice cut through the tension. I've lived in this territory 60 years. Seen it happen more times than I can count. Morrison rubbed his forehead. This is above my pay grade. He looked at Clara. Ma'am, I'm not here to hurt you, but I've got a job to do. Now we can do this easy, or we can do this hard. Your choice. There's a third option. Caleb moved to stand beside Clara. You can turn around and ride back to town. Tell whoever sent you that Clara Thornton is under my protection. And if they want her, they'll have to come through me. That would be obstruction of justice, Thornton. Would it? Jim stepped forward. Sheriff, you know as well as I do that this order isn't worth the paper it's printed on. It was issued in Denver, based on testimony that's never been cross-examined for a woman who's now legally married and living in a different jurisdiction. Any federal court would throw it out. But until they do? Until they do, you're standing on private property threatening a man's wife. Jim's voice hardened. I've known you 20 years, Morrison. You're not a bad man. You're just trying to do your job. But some jobs aren't worth doing. This is one of them. Morrison was silent for a long moment. Clara could see the conflict playing across his face. He was a lawman bound by duty, but he was also a human being standing in front of 14 armed people who clearly weren't going to back down. 1 week, he said finally. Webb's head snapped toward him. What? 1 week. Morrison held up a hand. That's how long it'll take to get a federal judge out here to review the case. Until then, Mrs. Thornton stays where she is. This is outrageous, Webb sputtered. Mr. Weston will hear about this. He'll have your badge. Mr. Weston can take it up with the territorial governor if he likes. Morrison's voice was tired. I'm not dragging a woman from her home on the say-so of some Denver lawyer. Not without proper review. Judge Cole stepped forward, face purple with rage. I am proper review. I have the authority. You have the authority to issue orders in your jurisdiction, Your Honor. This ain't your jurisdiction. Morrison mounted his horse. 1 week, Thornton. Get your affairs in order. If the federal judge rules against you, I'll be back. And if he rules in our favor? Morrison almost smiled. Then I reckon Mr. Weston will have wasted a lot of money. He turned his horse and rode away. After a moment's hesitation, the others followed. Webb cast one last venomous look at Clara before spurring his mount to catch up. When they were gone, the tension broke like a fever. Ben let out a whoop. Sarah lowered her rifle. Lily came running from the cellar, throwing herself at Caleb's legs. Did we win? Did we win? Not yet, baby girl. Caleb lifted her into his arms. But we bought ourselves some time. Clara's legs gave out. She would have fallen if Caleb hadn't caught her, Lily and all. Easy, he murmured. I've got you. 1 week. Her voice shook. We only have 1 week. 1 week is plenty. He set Lily down, cupped Clara's face in his hands. We've got witnesses. We've got documentation. We've got the truth on our side. The truth doesn't always win. It does when you fight for it hard enough. The next few days were a blur of activity. Jim sent telegrams to every contact he had in the federal judiciary. Ada mobilized the women of Silver Creek, spreading the story of Clara's persecution until half the town was up in arms. Ben and his sons stood guard around the clock, watching for any sign of Marcus's return. Clara threw herself into the work, desperate to feel useful. She helped Sarah organize supplies. She taught Lily her letters by firelight. She sat with Thomas in the evenings, listening to him talk about his mother, about the dreams he had for the future. Do you really love Pa? He asked her one night when everyone else had gone to bed. Clara considered the question carefully. The boy deserved honesty. I'm learning to, she said. Love takes time, Thomas. It doesn't happen all at once like in the stories. But you'll stay, even if the judge says you can go. Yes. She reached out, touched his shoulder. I'm not going anywhere. Thomas nodded slowly. Good. Because Lily needs you. And Pa. He paused. Pa's been different since you came. Better. Like he remembered how to be happy. What about you? The boy was quiet for a long moment. I was scared at first. Scared you'd try to replace Ma. Make us forget her. I would never. I know that now. He looked at her with eyes too old for his young face. You don't want us to forget. You just want to help us remember without hurting so much. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. That's exactly right. Then I'm glad you're here. Thomas stood awkward and gangly, in the way of boys on the verge of becoming men. Good night, Ma. It was the first time he'd called her that without prompting. Good night, Thomas. On the 5th day, everything changed. Clara was in the barn brushing down one of the horses when she heard hoofbeats approaching. Fast. Urgent. She dropped the brush and ran. A rider was coming from the direction of town, pushing his horse hard. As he got closer, Clara recognized him. Daniel Sarah's son, who'd been stationed in Silver Creek to keep watch. They're coming, he shouted, barely reining in before his horse trampled the porch. Marcus is coming. He's got 30 men, maybe more, and there's a federal marshal with them. Clara's blood turned to ice. Caleb emerged from the cabin, rifle in hand. How far? An hour, maybe less. They're not bothering with the road, coming straight across the valley. That's impossible. Jim limped out behind Caleb. The federal judge isn't due for 2 more days. They're not waiting for the judge. Daniel's face was pale. I heard them talking in town. Marcus bribed someone in the telegraph office. He knows what we've been planning. He's coming to take Clara before the hearing. Clara's knees buckled. All their preparation, all their planning. It wasn't going to be enough. Clara. Caleb's voice cut through her panic. Look at me. She looked. We're not giving up. You hear me? We've still got 14 people here, all armed. We've got the high ground. And we've got something worth fighting for. 30 men, Caleb. 30 men with a federal badge behind them. I've faced worse odds. When doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm still here. He pulled her close, pressed his forehead to hers. I made you a promise. No one takes you while I'm breathing. I meant it. I don't want you to die for me. Then I won't. He kissed her hard and fast. Now go help Ada get the children to the cellar. I've got a defense to organize. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to stand beside him and fight. But Lily's face flashed in her mind, and Thomas's, and she knew what she had to do. I love you, she said. The words surprised them both. She hadn't planned to say them, hadn't known she felt them until they were out. Caleb's face softened. I know. I've known since the night you said yes. He touched her cheek. Now go. She went. The cellar was dark and cold, lit only by a single lantern. Clara huddled with the children and Martha Chen listening to the sounds above. Shouting. Horses. The distant crack of what might have been gunfire. Lily pressed against her side, trembling. Are the bad men going to hurt Pa? No, sweetheart. Your Pa's the strongest man I know. What if they hurt you? Clara held her tighter. Then you run. You take Thomas and Martha and you run to the mountains. Don't look back. Don't stop for anything. Thomas's jaw tightened. I'm not running. I'm staying to fight. Thomas. I'm almost 11. Pa was hunting wolves at 11. The boy's voice shook, but his eyes were determined. I won't let them take you. You're my ma now. Clara felt her heart crack open. These children. These brave, fierce, beautiful children. They'd claimed her as surely as she'd claimed them. Then we stay together, she said. Whatever happens, we stay together. The cellar door burst open. Light flooded in, blinding after the darkness. Clara shoved the children behind her, raising the derringer Ada had given her. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, tall, familiar. "Clara!" Marcus's voice was silk over steel. "There you are." She fired. The shot went wide, burying itself in the doorframe inches from Marcus's head. He didn't flinch, just stepped into the cellar, flanked by two men with rifles. "That wasn't very nice," he tisked. "Then again, you were never nice, were you? Always difficult. Always fighting back." His smile turned cruel. "Edward should have broken you harder." "Where's Caleb?" Clara demanded. "What have you done with him?" "Your husband is otherwise occupied. My men are keeping him busy." Marcus moved closer. "It's over, Clara. You've run far enough. Time to come home." "I am home. This—" He gestured at the earthen walls, the dim light, the frightened children. "This is a hole in the ground. I'm offering you civilization, comfort, a place where you belong." "I belong here, with my family." "Family," Marcus laughed. "A grieving widower and two brats who aren't even yours. That's not family. That's desperation." Thomas stepped forward, putting himself between Clara and Marcus. "Don't you talk about my pa like that." Marcus's eyes narrowed. Brave little boy, just like his father. He nodded to one of his men. "Get him out of the way." "No." Clara lunged forward, but Marcus caught her arm, twisting it behind her back. She cried out in pain. "Enough!" The voice came from above, deep, authoritative, unfamiliar. Everyone froze. A new figure appeared in the doorway. An older man in a federal uniform, silver hair gleaming in the lantern light. "Marshal Kincaid." Marcus's grip on Clara tightened. "I wasn't expecting you." "Clearly." The marshal's eyes swept the cellar, taking in the scene. Clara held at gunpoint. Children cowering. Armed men ready to shoot. "Let her go, Weston." "With respect, Marshal, this woman is—" "I said, let her go." Something in the marshal's tone made Marcus's hand loosen. Clara stumbled away, gathering the children behind her. "This is none of your concern," Marcus said, his voice losing some of its smoothness. "I have legal authority. You have fraudulent papers signed by a judge I just arrested for corruption." Marshal Kincaid stepped into the cellar. Judge Cole sang like a canary once he realized he was facing federal charges. Told us everything. The bribes, the fabricated medical records, the conspiracy to wrongfully commit Mrs. Thornton. Marcus's face went white. That's impossible. He would never— Men do all sorts of things when they're facing 20 years in prison." The marshal's voice was ice. "Marcus Weston, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, unlawful imprisonment, and obstruction of justice. There may be additional charges once we finish investigating your brother's death." "My brother died in a riding accident." "Your brother was drunk and abusive. 3 women have come forward in the past week telling stories remarkably similar to Mrs. Thornton's." Kincaid produced handcuffs. "Turns out once one person finds the courage to speak, others follow." Marcus's composure shattered. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I have connections. I'll have your badge. You'll have a cell." Kincaid nodded to his men. "Take him." They dragged Marcus away, still screaming threats and promises. Clara watched him go, feeling something loosen in her chest. Something she'd carried for so long, she'd forgotten what it felt like to be free of it. Fear. "Mrs. Thornton." Marshal Kincaid turned to her, his expression softening. "I owe you an apology. The federal government failed you. We should have caught this sooner." "How did you catch it at all?" "Jim Blackwood sent me a telegram. We served together in the war back when we were both young and stupid." The marshal almost smiled. "He's a good man. Good meat. Doesn't reach out unless it's important." His eyes found hers. He was right. This was important. "Is it over?" Clara's voice cracked. "Is it really over?" "Marcus will stand trial. So will the doctors who falsified your commitment papers. So will everyone else involved in this conspiracy." Kincaid nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Thornton. It's over." Clara's legs gave out. She sat on the cold cellar floor, children piling onto her lap, and sobbed. Not from fear, not from pain, from relief so profound it felt like drowning. It was over. She was free. Caleb found her there 15 minutes later. He came down the ladder with blood on his sleeve and dust in his hair, and the moment he saw her, his face crumpled. "Clara." He crossed the cellar in 3 strides, dropped to his knees beside her. "Are you hurt?" "Did he—" "I'm fine." She touched his face, his arms, his chest, reassuring herself he was real. "You're bleeding." "Just a scratch. Ben took worse." He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. "I thought I'd lost you. When I heard the shot from the cellar, I thought, I missed." "What?" "I shot at Marcus. I missed." She laughed, the sound bordering on hysteria. "All those lessons Sarah gave me, and I missed from 10 feet away." "Doesn't matter." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. "You're safe. That's all that matters." Thomas cleared his throat. Pa, Lily's crying." They broke apart to find Lily sobbing into Martha's shoulder, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. "Come here, baby girl." Caleb opened his arms, and Lily launched herself into them. Thomas followed a moment later, and then Clara, until they were all tangled together in a heap of tears and laughter and relief. "Is it really over?" Thomas asked, echoing Clara's question to the marshal. Caleb looked at Clara. She nodded. "Yeah, son." His voice was thick with emotion. "It's really over." They climbed out of the cellar into a world transformed. Marcus's men had surrendered the moment they realized their employer was in federal custody. Most of them were hired guns with no loyalty beyond their paycheck. They sat in a dejected cluster near the barn, hands bound, watched over by Ben's sons. The homestead itself was remarkably undamaged. A few bullet holes in the fence posts, some trampled garden beds, nothing that couldn't be fixed. Their people had gathered on the porch waiting. Ada, Jim, Sarah and Daniel, Ben and his boys, the Garretts, Martha Chen. All of them bruised and exhausted and alive. "Well?" Ada demanded. "What's the verdict?" "Marcus is arrested." Clara's voice carried across the yard. "He's going to prison. It's over." The cheer that went up could probably be heard in Silver Creek. That night they celebrated. Someone produced a fiddle. Someone else found a jug of whiskey. The homestead filled with music and laughter, neighbors toasting each other, children running wild despite the late hour. Clara sat on the porch, watching it all, still not quite believing. "Mind if I sit?" Caleb settled beside her, his shoulder warm against hers. "Please." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their friends dance and sing and celebrate. Lily had fallen asleep in Sarah's lap. Thomas was trying to learn the fiddle from old Tom Jenkins, producing sounds that made the barn cats flee. "Thank you," Clara said finally. "For what?" "Everything." She turned to look at him. "You saved my life. Not just once, but over and over. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to believe in something again. You saved yourself." Caleb's hand found hers. "I just gave you a place to do it." "That's not true, and you know it." "Maybe." His thumb stroked her knuckles. "But here's what I know for sure. Before you came, I was just surviving, going through the motions, waiting for, I don't know what, something, anything. And now I've got something to live for." He lifted her hand to his lips. "I love you, Clara Thornton. I know it's fast. I know we've got a lot to figure out. But I love you." Clara felt tears streaming down her cheeks, happy tears. The second time in her life she'd cried from joy, and both times had been here, in this place, with this man. I love you too, she whispered. He kissed her, then slow and sweet, and Clara let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she'd finally found where she belonged. The celebration lasted until dawn. Clara woke the next morning in Caleb's arms, sunlight streaming through the window, and for a moment she didn't know where she was. The absence of fear was so profound, so unfamiliar, that she lay perfectly still, waiting for reality to catch up. "You're thinking too loud." Caleb's voice was rough with sleep. "I can hear it from here. Sorry. Don't be." He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her hair. "What's on your mind?" "I keep waiting to wake up, to find out this was all a dream." "It's not a dream." His hand found hers, guided it to his chest. "Feel that real heartbeat. Real man. Real life." Clara pressed her palm against the steady thump beneath his ribs. Real. He was real. This was real. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "Do what?" "Be happy." The words came out small, ashamed. "I've spent so long being afraid I don't remember what it feels like to just live." Caleb was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "You know what I did the first morning after Maggie died?" "What?" "I got up, made breakfast, fed the chickens, mended a fence that had been bothering me for weeks." He paused. "I didn't feel anything, just went through the motions, but I got up. That's the important part. And then I did it again the next day, and the next, and eventually somewhere along the way the feelings caught up." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "You don't have to figure out happiness all at once. You just have to keep getting up." Clara turned to face him. In the morning light, he looked younger somehow, less burdened, like some weight had lifted from his shoulders along with hers. "When did you get so wise?" "Wise." He snorted. "I'm just old and stubborn. Wisdom's got nothing to do with it." She laughed. The sound surprised her, rusty and unfamiliar, like a door that hadn't been opened in years. "There it is." Caleb smiled, and Clara felt her heart turn over in her chest. "Been waiting to hear that laugh." "I'm out of practice." "Then we'll practice together." He kissed her soft and slow. "Starting right now." The days that followed were strange and wonderful. With Marcus in custody and the threat removed, Clara had nothing to do but exist. No running, no hiding, no looking over her shoulder every moment waiting for the blow to fall. It should have been peaceful. Instead, it was terrifying. She found herself jumping at sudden noises, flinching when Caleb moved too fast, waking in the night with Edward's voice in her ears, heart-pounding sheets damp with sweat. "Bad dream?" Caleb asked one night sitting up beside her. "Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you." "You didn't." He lit the lamp, its warm glow pushing back the darkness. "Same one as before." Clara nodded. She'd told him about the dreams, about Edward's hands around her throat, his breath hot and sour, his voice whispering that she was nothing, would always be nothing. "Come here." Caleb opened his arms. She went, let him hold her while the trembling subsided, let his steady heartbeat remind her where she was, who she was now. "It's going to take time," he said quietly. "Healing always does." "What if I never heal? What if I'm broken forever?" "You're not broken." His voice was fierce. "You're wounded. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Broken things can't be fixed. Wounds heal." He tilted her chin up, made her meet his eyes. "You're already healing, Clara. Every day. Every time you laugh with Lily or talk with Thomas, or let me hold you like this. That's healing." "It doesn't feel like healing. It feels like falling apart." "Sometimes that's the same thing." He kissed her forehead. "The old you, the one who learned to survive by hiding and running and being afraid she has to fall apart. That's the only way the new you can grow." Clara thought about that, about the woman she'd been when Caleb found her, curled in the snow, waiting to die. About the woman she was becoming here in this cabin with this family. "I don't know who the new me is." "That's okay." Caleb smiled. We've got time to find out. Spring crept into the valley, slow and tentative. The snow melted. The creek swelled with runoff. Green shoots pushed through the thawing earth, reaching for the sun. Clara found herself changing with the season. She took over the kitchen garden, spending hours on her knees in the dirt planting seeds and pulling weeds. The work was hard, and her hands blistered, but there was something deeply satisfying about watching things grow. "Ma, look!" Lily came running one morning holding a small green sprout. "My bean plant came up." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Clara knelt to examine it. "You've been taking such good care of it." "Mrs. Chen showed me how." Lily's face glowed with pride. "She says I have a green thumb." "What's a green thumb?" "It means you're good at growing things." "Am I?" Lily looked at her plant with new appreciation. "I want to grow everything. Beans and tomatoes and flowers and trees." "Then you will." Clara tucked a strand of hair behind the girl's ear. "You can do anything you set your mind to, Lily. Don't let anyone tell you different." "That's what Pa says." "Your Pa is a smart man." Lily nodded solemnly. "He says you're smart too. He says you're the smartest woman he ever met, except for Mama." Clara's heart squeezed. "He said that?" "Uh-huh. He tells Thomas and me stories about you at bedtime now. About how you were brave and strong and didn't let the bad man win. I had help. Lots of help." "That's what Pa says too." Lily grinned. "He says the best people know when to ask for help. He says that's not weakness, it's wisdom." Clara felt tears prick her eyes. This man. This impossible, stubborn, beautiful man. "Go show your Pa your bean plant," she said, her voice thick. "He'll want to see." Lily ran off, clutching her prize. Clara stayed in the garden, hands in the dirt, and let the tears fall. Happy tears. She was getting better at recognizing them. Thomas's birthday came in late April. Clara had spent weeks planning. Baking a cake from Maggie's recipe, which Ada had helped her track down. Sewing a new shirt from fabric she'd ordered special from Denver. Recruiting Ben to help Caleb build a proper gun rack for Thomas's growing collection of rifles. "You didn't have to do all this," Thomas said, staring at the spread before him. 11 candles flickered on the cake. Wrapped presents sat in a pile. Half the neighbors had come to celebrate. "I wanted to." Clara touched his shoulder. "You're my son now. Your birthday matters." Thomas looked at her for a long moment. Something shifted in his face. Something that had been holding back finally letting go. "Thank you, Ma." He hugged her then. Really hugged her, not the awkward obligatory embraces of the early days. Clara held him tight, this boy who'd lost so much, who'd been so suspicious of her at first, who'd become as dear to her as if she'd carried him herself. "Happy birthday, Thomas." "Best one yet," he mumbled into her shoulder. "Best one since Mama." Later, after the cake was eaten and the presents opened, Clara found Caleb standing alone by the barn. He was looking at something in his hand. "What's that?" He showed her. A small daguerreotype in a tarnished silver frame. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes, a baby in her arms, a toddler at her feet. "Maggie," Clara said softly. "Taken 2 months before she got sick." Caleb's voice was rough. "Thomas asked if he could have it, for his room." "And you said yes." "Of course." He looked at her, eyes shining. "I've been holding on to her so tight I forgot he needs to hold on too." Clara slipped her arm through his. "She was beautiful." She was. No hesitation, no guilt, just truth. "She would have liked you." "You think so?" "I know so." Caleb tucked the picture into his pocket. "She always said I needed someone to argue with, keep me humble." Clara laughed. "Is that what I do? Keep you humble?" "Among other things." He pulled her close. "Mostly you make me happy." She would have wanted that. "What about you? What do you want?" Caleb looked at her. Really looked the way he had that first day in the snow. like he was seeing through all her walls and fears to the person underneath. "I want this," he said simply. "You, the kids, this life we're building. I want to wake up every morning with you beside me and go to sleep every night knowing you're safe. That's it. That's everything." He kissed her slow and deep. "That's my whole world." May brought news from Denver. Marshal Kincaid sent word that Marcus's trial had concluded. Guilty on all counts. 25 years in federal prison with no possibility of early release. "It's done," Clara said, staring at the telegram. "He can never hurt anyone again." "How do you feel?" Caleb asked. Clara considered the question. She expected to feel triumphant, vindicated. Instead, she felt empty, like she'd been carrying a heavy load for so long that she didn't know how to walk without it. "I don't know," she admitted. "I thought I'd be happy." "Maybe happy comes later. Maybe right now you just need to let it sink in." "Maybe." She set down the telegram. "Or maybe I need to stop waiting to feel something and just live." "That's the spirit," Caleb grinned. "Speaking of living, Ada's organizing a dance in town next Saturday. What do you say? A dance. Spring celebration. Whole town turns out. There's music and food and well dancing." He looked almost shy. "I haven't been to one since Maggie, but I thought if you wanted, I'd love to." His face lit up. "Yeah. Yeah." Clara smiled. "Teach me to dance, Caleb Thornton." The dance was held in Henderson's barn, which had been cleared and decorated with ribbons and wildflowers. Half of Silver Creek had turned out dressed in their finest, ready to celebrate the end of a hard winter. Clara wore a new dress. Blue this time, not brown. She'd made it herself with Ada's help, and the old woman had declared it tolerable, which was high praise indeed. "You look beautiful," Caleb said when he saw her. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He did. He'd trimmed his beard, polished his boots, put on a shirt without a single patch. He looked like a different man from the grim rancher who'd found her in the snow. Then again, she was a different woman. The music started a lively fiddle tune that set feet tapping. Couples took to the floor. Caleb held out his hand. "May I have this dance, Mrs. Thornton?" Clara took it. "You may." He led her onto the floor, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers. She'd never danced like this. Edward had considered it vulgar beneath their station. But there was nothing vulgar about the way Caleb moved her across the floor, confident and sure. "You're good at this," she said, surprised. "Maggie taught me." No shadow crossed his face at the mention. Just warmth. She loved to dance. "Tell me about her." "Now?" "Yes." Clara leaned closer. "I want to know who she was, what she loved, what made her laugh." So he told her. While they danced, while the music swirled around them, Caleb talked about his first wife, how they'd met at a church social in Denver, how she'd made him chase her for 3 months before agreeing to a single date, how she'd laughed at his fumbling proposal and said yes before he'd finished the question. "She sounds wonderful," Clara said. She was. Caleb's eyes met hers. "You are too. Different, but wonderful." "Different how?" "Maggie was sunshine. Everything easy and bright. She made the world seem simple." He spun her gently. "You're more like moonlight. Quieter. Deeper. You make me see the beauty in complicated things." "I'm not sure that's a compliment." "It is." He pulled her closer. "The moon's been around a lot longer than the sun. And it's still beautiful even after everything it's been through." Clara felt tears threaten. "You're going to make me cry in front of the whole town. Then they'll know how much I love you." "Caleb, I mean it." He stopped dancing right there in the middle of the floor, surrounded by their neighbors. "I love you, Clara. Not instead of Maggie. Not because of what you've been through. Just you. All of you. The scared parts, and the strong parts, and everything in between. I love you too. The words came easier now. 3 months of practice. 3 months of learning to trust. I love you so much it terrifies me. Good terror or bad terror? Good. She laughed through her tears. Definitely good. He kissed her then, right there in Henderson's barn, with half of Silver Creek watching. Someone whooped. Someone else started clapping. The fiddler struck up a celebratory tune. Clara didn't care. Let them watch. Let them see what love looked like after loss. After pain. After everything. Let them see what healing looked like. Summer arrived in full force. The days grew long and hot. The garden exploded with vegetables. The horses grew sleek on fresh grass. Life on the Thornton homestead settled into a comfortable rhythm. Clara found herself thinking less about the past. The nightmares came less frequently now. Edward's voice grew fainter, easier to ignore. Some nights she slept straight through till morning, wrapped in Caleb's arms, and woke feeling almost normal, almost whole. "Ma!" Lily's voice drifted through the window. "Ma, come look." Clara wiped her hands on her apron and went outside. Lily stood by the garden fence, pointing excitedly at something in the dirt. "What is it, sweetheart? A butterfly, a real butterfly." Lily bounced on her toes. "It landed on my bean plant." Clara knelt beside her daughter. A monarch butterfly perched on the now sprawling bean vine, its orange wings slowly opening and closing. "Do you know where butterflies come from?" Clara asked. "From eggs. Before they're butterflies, they're caterpillars. And before they can become butterflies, they have to go through a hard time. They wrap themselves in a cocoon and stay there for a long while, changing and growing. Does it hurt? Maybe. But when they come out, they can fly. They're completely different from what they were before." Clara watched the butterfly rise into the air. "That's what growing is, Lily. Sometimes it hurts, but it's worth it because at the end you get to fly." Lily considered this with the gravity of a child. "Is that what happened to you, Ma? Were you a caterpillar?" Clara smiled. "I think I'm still in my cocoon, but I'm getting closer to the flying part." "Good." Lily slipped her hand into Clara's. "I want you to fly. You deserve to fly." Such simple words. Such profound truth. Clara held her daughter's hand and watched the butterfly disappear over the fence, and felt something shift inside her. Not quite flying. Not yet, but close. That evening, Clara found Caleb at Maggie's grave. He went there sometimes, usually when he had something on his mind. She'd learned not to intrude, to let him have his moments with his first love. But tonight, something drew her up the hill. "I'm not interrupting." "Never." He held out his hand. She took it. "I was just telling Maggie about Thomas's report card. All high marks. He's been working hard." "He has." Caleb looked at the simple wooden cross, the wildflowers someone had placed at its base. "I wish she could see them. See who they're becoming." Maybe she can. "You believe that?" Clara considered. "I believe that the people we love stay with us even after they're gone. Maybe not the way we expect, but they're there. In the things we remember, the lessons they taught us, the love they left behind." Caleb was quiet for a long moment. Maggie would have said something like that. Then she was wise. She was. He turned to face her. "So are you." "I'm learning." Clara looked at the grave, this sacred space that held so much history. "Thank you for sharing them with me. Thomas and Lily, this family. I know it can't be easy watching someone else." "Stop." His voice was gentle but firm. "You're not someone else. You're you. And you're not replacing anyone. You're adding to what we have." He cupped her face in his hands. "This family has room for all of us. The living and the dead. The past and the future. That's what love does. It expands." Clara felt the last of her walls crumble. Not dramatically the way they had in those first desperate weeks. Quietly. Gently. Like snow melting in the spring sun. "I want to be your wife," she said. "Really your wife. Not just legally. Not just for protection. I want to build a life with you. Have children with you. Grow old with you." Caleb's breath caught. "Clara. I know it's fast. I know we're still figuring things out. But I'm done waiting to feel ready. I'm done letting fear make my decisions." She took his hands. "I choose you, Caleb Thornton. Not because you saved me. Because you saw me. The real me. And you loved her anyway." "I do." His voice was rough with emotion. "God help me, I do." "Then let's stop surviving. Let's start living." He kissed her there on the hill overlooking their home with Maggie's grave as witness. And Clara felt something she'd never felt before. Not the absence of fear. The presence of hope. That night, Clara went to Caleb willingly. Not out of duty. Not out of obligation. Out of love pure and simple. Out of a desire she'd thought Edward had killed forever. "Are you sure?" Caleb asked, his hands trembling where they rested on her waist. "Yes." She kissed him. "I'm sure." What followed was nothing like what she'd known before. No pain, no fear, no voice in her head telling her she was worthless. Just tenderness, just connection, just two wounded people finding solace in each other's arms. Afterward, Clara lay with her head on Caleb's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "You're crying," he said softly. "Happy tears." She wiped her face. "I didn't know it could be like this." "Like what?" "Gentle, safe." She looked up at him. "Like being loved." Caleb pulled her closer. "You are loved. You will always be loved." Clara closed her eyes. For the first time in her adult life, she believed it. The summer stretched on golden and warm. Clara learned to ride properly. Thomas taught her to shoot straight. Lily taught her every song she knew, and some she made up on the spot. Ada stopped by weekly pretending to check on things, but really just wanting to gossip and drink coffee. And through it all, Clara felt herself becoming someone new. Not the broken woman who'd crawled through the snow waiting to die. Not the frightened wife who'd learned to make herself small. Someone stronger. Someone braver. Someone who laughed easily and loved freely and looked forward to tomorrow. "What are you smiling about?" Caleb asked one evening, finding her on the porch. "Nothing. Everything." Clara leaned into him as he sat beside her. "I was just thinking about how different my life is now. How different I am. Different good. Different miraculous." She looked at him. "A year ago, I was planning my own death. Did you know that in Boston before Marcus had me committed, I had it all figured out? How I'd do it. When. Where." Caleb went still. "Clara, I'm not telling you to make you sad. I'm telling you because I need you to understand." She took his hand. "You didn't just save my body when you pulled me out of that snow. You saved my soul. You gave me a reason to live, a reason to fight, a reason to believe that maybe, just maybe, I deserve to be happy. You deserve everything." His voice was fierce. "Everything good and beautiful and kind. You deserve the world." "I don't need the world," Clara smiled. "I just need this. You. The children. This home. This life." She gestured at the valley spread before them, purple with twilight. "This is enough. This is everything." Caleb kissed her forehead. "I love you." "I know." She nestled against him. "I love you too." They sat there as the stars came out, husband and wife watching the world grow dark and peaceful. Somewhere inside, Lily was telling Thomas an elaborate story about a princess and a dragon. Somewhere out in the barn, the horses were settling in for the night. And Clara Thornton, who had once been Clara Weston, who had once been nothing but a scared girl with no hope and no future, felt her heart overflow with gratitude. She had survived. She had healed. She had found her way home. Autumn painted the valley in shades of gold and crimson. Clara stood at the window, watching the leaves fall, one hand pressed against her stomach. 2 months now since she'd first suspected. 2 weeks since Ada had confirmed it. A baby. Their baby. She hadn't told Caleb yet, hadn't found the right moment, the right words. Part of her was terrified. The last time she'd carried a child, Edward had beaten it out of her before she'd even felt it move. But Edward was dead. Marcus was in prison. And Caleb was nothing like either of them. "You've been quiet all morning." Caleb came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "Something on your mind?" "Always." "Care to share?" Clara turned in his arms, looking up at him. This man who'd saved her, who'd loved her back to life, who deserved to know the truth. "I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. Caleb went very still. "Say that again." "I'm pregnant." Clara's voice trembled. "Ada confirmed it. About 2 months along, she thinks." "A baby." His voice cracked. "We're having a baby." "Yes." For a long moment he didn't speak, didn't move. Clara felt fear creeping in. What if he didn't want this? What if it was too soon? What if Caleb dropped to his knees? He pressed his face against her stomach, hands splayed across her hips, and Clara felt his shoulders shake. When he looked up, his face was wet with tears. "A baby," he whispered. "Our baby. You're happy. Happy." He laughed, the sound raw with emotion. "Clara, I thought this part of my life was over. I thought that we'd never—" He couldn't finish. Just pulled her down to kneel with him, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "I was scared to tell you," she admitted against his shoulder. "The last time I was pregnant." "This isn't last time." His voice was fierce. "This is us. This is our family. Our future." "I know. You're scared." He pulled back, cupped her face in his hands. "That's okay. I'm scared too. But we'll be scared together. And we'll get through it together, just like everything else." Clara let herself believe him, let herself hope, let herself imagine a future where she held a newborn in her arms, surrounded by family, safe and loved. "We need to tell the children," she said. "Tonight, at dinner." Caleb's face split into a grin. "Lily's going to lose her mind." He was right. "A baby!" Lily shrieked, nearly knocking over her milk. "We're getting a baby. A real baby." "A real baby," Clara confirmed, laughing. "Can it be a girl? I want a sister. Thomas is nice, but he never wants to play dolls." "We don't get to choose, sweetheart. We'll love whoever comes." Thomas had gone quiet. Clara watched him, remembering his early resistance, his fear of things changing. But when he looked up, his eyes were bright. "Pa, does this mean—" He swallowed hard. "Does this mean Clara's really staying forever? Like really forever?" "She was always staying forever," Caleb said gently. "But yes, a baby makes it even more forever, I suppose." Thomas nodded slowly. Then a smile broke across his face, transforming him from solemn boy to excited, almost teenager. "I get to be a big brother. A real big brother, not just to Lily." "You've always been a real big brother," Clara said. "But yes, you'll have someone else to teach and protect. I'll teach them to ride, and shoot, and fish." Thomas was already planning. "And they'll have the best ma and pa in the whole territory." Clara felt tears streaming down her face. "Thomas, it's true." He looked at her with an intensity beyond his years. "You know how I know, because you came here with nothing. You were hurt and scared and alone. But you didn't give up. You fought. And you loved us even when we didn't make it easy." "Thomas, Let me finish." His voice cracked. "My mama was the best person I ever knew. I didn't think anyone could come close. But you're different. You're not trying to be her. You're just trying to be you. And that's enough. That's more than enough." Clara crossed the room and pulled him into her arms. He was almost as tall as her, now gangly with adolescence, but he held on like a much younger child. "I love you," she whispered. "All of you. So much." "We love you too, Ma." Thomas's voice was muffled against her shoulder. "We really do." The news spread through Silver Creek like wildfire. Ada took credit naturally. "Knew it the moment I looked at her. Got that glow. Same glow Maggie had when she was carrying Thomas." Sarah brought over a basket of baby clothes her own children had outgrown. Martha Chen started knitting blankets. Even old Henderson, who'd once refused to serve Clara in his store, sent over a crate of supplies with a gruff note of congratulations. "People change," Caleb observed, watching Clara sort through the gifts. "Do they? Some of them, given the right reasons." He pulled her onto his lap. "You've given them reasons." "I haven't done anything." "You survived. You stood up to a powerful man and won. You showed them that courage comes in all forms." He kissed her cheek. "You're a hero in this town, whether you like it or not." "I'm not a hero. I'm just what?" Clara thought about it. About who she'd been and who she'd become. About the journey from Boston, drawing room to Colorado cabin, from battered wife to beloved mother. "I'm just Clara," she said finally. "That's all I ever wanted to be." "That's more than enough." Caleb's arms tightened around her. "That's everything." Winter came early that year. The first snow fell in late October, blanketing the valley in white. Clara stood on the porch, wrapped in a thick shawl, watching the flakes drift down. 1 year ago, she'd been dying in snow like this, curled behind Henderson's store, waiting for the cold to take her, hoping it would be quick. Now she stood in the warmth of her home, hand resting on the swell of her belly, watching her husband teach their son to chop wood while their daughter built a lopsided snowman nearby. "You're thinking about last year," Ada's voice came from behind her. Clara turned. The old woman had arrived for her weekly visit, cheeks red from the cold. "How did you know?" "Because I think about it too." Ada joined her at the porch railing. "The day Caleb brought you in, I didn't give you 6 months. Figured the fear would eat you alive if the cold didn't get you first." "What changed your mind?" "Watching you fight." Ada's voice softened. "I've seen a lot of people give up in my time. Strong people, brave people. But you just kept getting back up, no matter how many times life knocked you down." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Ada looked at her sharply. "You could have run, could have hidden, could have let Marcus take you back to that asylum, but you didn't. You stood your ground, and you fought. I had help. Everyone needs help. That's not weakness, it's wisdom." Ada patted her arm. "You're going to be a good mother, Clara. You already are." "I'm terrified." "Good. Means you understand what's at stake." The old woman smiled. "But here's what I know after 73 years on this earth. The things that scare us most are usually the things most worth doing." Clara watched Caleb swing Thomas up onto his shoulders, both of them laughing. Watched Lily abandon her snowman to run and join them. Watched the family she'd built, the life she'd chosen, the future she'd fought for. "Thank you, Ada, for everything." "Don't thank me yet." Ada's eyes twinkled. "Wait until you've been through childbirth, then we'll talk." Clara laughed. The sound rang out across the snow bright and clear, and Caleb looked up at her with a smile that warmed her to her bones. The months passed in a blur of preparation. Caleb expanded the cabin, adding a room for the baby. Thomas took over more chores, determined to prove he could handle the extra responsibility. Lily appointed herself official baby name suggester, presenting increasingly elaborate options each evening at dinner. "What about Butterfly?" she asked one night. "Or Snowflake, or Princess Moonbeam. Those are very creative. Clara said diplomatically. But maybe something a little more traditional. Traditional is boring. Traditional is timeless, Caleb corrected. Like Thomas or Lily. My name isn't traditional. It's beautiful. It can be both. Clara watched the exchange heart full. This was what family looked like. What she'd always dreamed of, but never believed she could have. What about Eleanor? Thomas suggested quietly. Everyone went still. That was grandmother's name, Thomas explained. Pa's mother. She died before I was born, but Mama used to tell stories about her. Caleb's eyes met Clara's across the table. She saw the emotion there, the memory of a mother he'd loved, a legacy he wanted to honor. Eleanor, Clara said softly. If it's a girl. And if it's a boy, Lily demanded. Then we'll think of something equally meaningful. Clara reached across the table to squeeze Thomas's hand. Thank you for suggesting it. Mama would have liked that. Thomas's voice was thick. She always said family names carry history. Make us part of something bigger than ourselves. She was right. Caleb's voice caught. She usually was. That night, after the children were in bed, Clara found Caleb standing by the window. Moonlight silvered his profile, catching the gray at his temples. You're thinking about her, Clara said. Always. He didn't turn. But not the way I used to, not with the same pain. How then? With gratitude. He finally looked at her. She gave me Thomas and Lily. She taught me how to love. And somehow, even from wherever she is now, she led me to you. You don't really believe that. Don't I? Caleb crossed to her, took her hands. Clara, the morning I found you, I wasn't planning to go to town. I was going to wait another week. But something told me to go. To take that road. To look behind Henderson's store. Coincidence? Maybe. His thumb stroked her knuckles. Or maybe some loves are strong enough to reach across death, to guide us toward the people we need. Clara thought about that. About Maggie, who she'd never known, but whose presence she felt in every corner of this home. In the quilt on the bed. In the recipes in the kitchen. In the children who carried her smile and her kindness. I'd like to believe that, she said. Then believe it. Caleb pulled her close. Believe that she approves. That she's happy. That she's watching over all of us, making sure we're okay. Clara rested her head on his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. I love you. I love you too. He kissed her hair. Both of you. His hand found her belly where their child grew. Clara covered his hand with hers. 2 heartbeats. 3 heartbeats. A family growing and changing and becoming something new. The baby came in March. It was a hard labor, 12 hours of pain and fear and exhaustion. Ada stayed by Clara's side, coaching her through each contraction, while Caleb paced the main room like a caged animal. Pa's gonna wear a hole in the floor, Thomas observed. Let him. Lily was too worried to joke. Is Ma gonna be okay? She's strong. Thomas put his arm around his sister. She's the strongest person I know. In the bedroom, Clara screamed. Caleb lurched toward the door. Don't you dare! Ada's voice stopped him. Birth is women's work. You stay out here and pray. I can't just... You can and you will. The old woman's eyes softened. She's doing fine, Caleb. Better than fine. But she doesn't need to worry about you on top of everything else. So Caleb prayed. For the first time in years, he dropped to his knees and prayed with everything he had. For Clara, for the baby, for the family he'd been given, and the future he'd been promised. At dawn, a new voice joined the world. Ada emerged from the bedroom, face lined with exhaustion, but eyes bright with triumph. It's a girl. Caleb was through the door before she finished speaking. He found Clara propped up in bed, pale and spent, but radiant. In her arms, wrapped in one of Martha Chen's blankets, lay the smallest human being he'd ever seen. "Say hello to Eleanor," Clara whispered. "Eleanor Rose Thornton." Caleb sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling as he reached for his daughter. She was red and wrinkled and absolutely perfect. "She looks like you," he managed. "She looks like herself." Clara leaned against his shoulder. A whole new person with her whole life ahead of her. Thomas and Lily crept in, eyes wide. "She's so small," Lily breathed. "You were that small once." Caleb held out his free arm, gathering his daughter close. "Smaller even." "No way." "Way." He looked at his family crowded together on the bed surrounding the newest member. His heart felt too big for his chest. "Welcome to the world, Eleanor Rose. You've got a lot of people who love you." The baby's eyes fluttered open, impossibly blue, and Caleb felt something slot into place. A final puzzle piece he hadn't known was missing. Complete. They were complete. Spring arrived in full bloom. Clara recovered quickly, her strength returning with the warming weather. Eleanor grew like a weed, going from silent bundle to gurgling curious infant in what seemed like days. "She smiled at me," Lily announced one morning. "A real smile, not a gas one." "Are you sure?" Thomas looked skeptical. "I'm sure. She knows who I am. She knows I'm her big sister." Clara watched them gather around the bassinet, three children united in their fascination with the fourth. This was what she'd dreamed of in those dark Boston years. What she'd believed could never be hers. "You're crying again." Caleb appeared at her side, concerned. "You've been crying a lot lately." "Happy tears." "Still." He pulled her close. "Want to talk about it?" Clara searched for words. "I can't believe this is my life. I keep waiting to wake up, to find out it's all been a dream." "Not a dream." He kissed her forehead. "Just a different kind of miracle." "Since when do you believe in miracles?" "Since I found you in the snow." His eyes held hers, steady and sure. "Since you taught me that hope can survive anything, even when we're sure it can't." Clara thought about the past 2 years, the fear, the pain, the seemingly endless darkness, and then the light breaking through when she least expected it, love growing in the most unlikely soil. "I want to visit Maggie's grave," she said suddenly, "with Eleanor. I want to introduce them." Caleb's expression softened. "You sure?" "I'm sure." Clara took his hand. "She's part of this family too. She should meet her niece." They went that afternoon, the whole family trudging up the hill together. Clara carried Eleanor wrapped tight against the spring breeze. Caleb held Lily's hand. Thomas walked ahead, pulling weeds from the path. At the grave, they stood in silence for a moment. Then Clara stepped forward. "Hello, Maggie. I know we've never met, but I've heard so much about you." She looked down at the bundle in her arms. "This is Eleanor, your namesake. She's got your husband's stubborn chin and your son's curious eyes." Lily tugged at Caleb's hand. "Can I say something too?" "Of course, baby girl." Lily approached the grave solemnly. "Hi, Mama. I know you're in heaven now, but I wanted you to know we're okay. Pa doesn't cry at night anymore, and Clara takes really good care of us. I think you'd like her." She paused. "I love you. I'll always love you. But I love Clara too. Is that okay?" Caleb's eyes were wet. He knelt beside his daughter. "That's more than okay, Lily. That's exactly what Mama would have wanted." Thomas was last. He stood before the grave, hands shoved in his pockets, struggling for words. "I miss you, Mama," he said finally. "Every day, but I'm okay. We're all okay." He glanced back at Clara. "You were right. Love doesn't run out. It just grows, gets bigger, makes room for more people." His voice cracked. "Thank you for teaching me that." Clara felt tears streaming down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Some tears were meant to fall. Caleb put his arms around all of them, drawing them close. "We're a family," he said quietly. "Living and dead, past and present, all of us together, always." Eleanor chose that moment to let out a wail. Lily giggled. Thomas smiled. Caleb laughed out loud. And Clara, holding her daughter in her arms, surrounded by the people she loved, finally understood what it meant to be whole. The summer of 1889 was the happiest of Clara's life. The ranch prospered. The children grew. Eleanor learned to roll over, then sit up, then crawl with determined speed toward anything that caught her attention. "She's going to be trouble," Ada predicted. Got that look in her eye. "She comes by it honestly." Caleb grinned. "Her mother's no stranger to trouble. Her mother prefers the term determined. That too." They sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the valley in shades of gold. Thomas was teaching Lily to rope fence posts. Eleanor played with her toes in Clara's lap. "Hard to believe it's been 2 years," Caleb said. "Since what?" "Since I found you. Since all of this started." He reached over, took her hand. "Sometimes it feels like a lifetime. Sometimes it feels like yesterday. A lot can change in 2 years. A lot has changed." He looked at her eyes soft. "You've changed. Grown. Become someone even stronger than you were. I had help. We all need help." He squeezed her fingers. "That's what family's for." Clara looked at her children, at her husband, at the home they'd built together piece by piece from the wreckage of 2 broken lives. "I used to think I was cursed," she said softly. "That happiness wasn't meant for people like me, that I'd been born to suffer, and there was nothing I could do about it. And now I think I was wrong." She turned to face him. "I think the pain was preparation, teaching me to appreciate the good when it finally came, making me strong enough to hold on to it." "That's a beautiful way to look at it. It's the true way." Clara smiled. "I wouldn't trade a single moment of my life, Caleb, not even the worst ones, because they led me here. To you, to this, to everything I never dared to dream." Caleb leaned over and kissed her soft and sweet. "I love you, Clara Thornton." "I love you too." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Forever and always." They sat there as the sun went down, husband and wife watching the stars come out one by one. The children's laughter drifted across the yard. The horses nickered in the barn. The evening breeze carried the scent of hay and wildflowers. Clara closed her eyes and let herself feel it. All of it. The peace. The joy. The bone-deep certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. She had survived the worst life could throw at her. She had found love in the most unexpected place. She had built a family from the ashes of her past. And now at last, she was home. Not just a place. Not just a building. Home was the people who loved her, the life they'd created together, the future stretching out before them like an endless Colorado sky. Clara Thornton had once been a woman with nothing. No hope, no future, no reason to believe tomorrow would be better than today. But she had kept getting up, kept fighting, kept believing that somewhere, somehow, there was a place in this world where she belonged, and she had found it. In a snowstorm, in a stranger's kindness, in the steady hands of a grieving widower and the open hearts of his children. She had found her miracle. She had found her home. She had found herself, and that Clara knew with absolute certainty was worth every single step of the journey. The baby in her arms cooed softly. Her husband's hand tightened around hers. Her children called out good nights as they headed inside. Clara Thornton smiled and watched the last light fade from the sky. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new reasons to be grateful. But tonight, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. And that was more than enough. That was everything.